Hi everyone! Today our team, CyberVision, will present our analysis and recommendation for POP after the numerous DDoS attacks experienced by POP Vote, the e-voting system. Let me introduce the CyberVision team. There are 5 members in our team, which will include me, Angel, Arvis, Daria, Serge, and Stylianos. Here's an executive summary to what has happened to POP. POP Vote was launched in 2012 and the system was under a large-scale DDoS attack during its first e-voting event. After this incident, POP took about a year to improve their system, but they were still unable to withstand the massive DDoS attack during a politically controversial voting event in 2014. Our team has identified some of the root causes that resulted in these vulnerabilities in the system, which include the insufficient IT department structure and expertise, absence of risk and vulnerability assessment for the critical system, lack of organizational policies and procedures in case of a cyber attack, and inadequate staff-wide IT training in general. In this coming presentation, we will also be providing recommendations based on the NIST framework, and also a plan of moving forward, which will cover the development of software enhancement, privacy, performance, and security aspects without impacting the user experience.
Here is a timeline of the major events that happened to POP Vote. On February 28th of 2012, POP announced the date of their first e-voting event. On March 21st, POP experienced their first DDoS attack during their second phase of testing, which was successfully blocked by their internet service provider. On March 23rd, POP Vote experienced a second DDoS attack that crippled both their on-site and off-site voting systems. On January 23rd of 2013, POP formed an IT advisory group for system improvement, and they came back to public eyes for the 2014 New Year vote. This was a success as no attack was detected. From June 13 to June 18, POP hosted another mock vote for a politically controversial voting event, and they experienced yet another DDoS attack. Udomain and AWS decided to suspend their service to POP. Cloudflare remained as the only cloud service provider left to mitigate the last DDoS attack between June 20th and June 22nd. Yet on June 21st, they announced they were successful in doing so. In any properly functioning system, there is a separation of responsibilities that needs to happen between all parties involved to ensure success. The main responsibility that POP faces is ensuring the security of their code and environment in general. Third-party providers also hold certain responsibilities on their end. The key one to focus on here is the second point. The caveat here is that we don't know the language of the contracts that POP signed with AWS and Udomain that allowed them to terminate their service mid-DDoS attack. Despite this, any third party must ensure that their service is available for use as outlined in their service level agreement with POP. The key shared responsibility to highlight is network controls. This can best be explained using the example of AWS's network firewall service. Although AWS is the one that actually provides the firewall, it is still the responsibility of POP to ensure that it is configured correctly. From here on out, we will be talking about the analysis and recommendations that we have for POP. Based on our analysis, we have identified the following to be the root causes of the 2012 and 2014 attacks. To begin, POP's IT department was not structured to implement a system of this magnitude, lacking internal cybersecurity and system subject matter expertise. This, in addition to pressures of meeting strict project deadlines, resulted in a poorly designed system with inadequate security measures in place. This leads us to our next issue. Due to a quick rollout of the new system and subsequent improvements after the attacks, the organization has not performed a proper risk assessment of the environment to better understand system vulnerabilities, their impact to the organizational functions, or to prioritize efforts. Focusing more on the organizational structure, we have identified a lack of policies and procedures in place for identifying, communicating, and remediating cybersecurity threats. There were weak or even no formal policies and procedures in place, including a lack of response and recovery plan to address attacks similar to the ones performed. This led to ineffective communication amongst impacted parties and delayed recovery of the POP Vote system during the initial attacks. Lastly, staff and other stakeholders were not adequately trained on cybersecurity best practices and their role in protecting the organization, including identifying and reporting attacks such as phishing emails, which led to 2 accounts being breached.
Our recommendation focuses on strengthening your organization's security posture and centered around the identify, protect, and respond functions of the NIST cybersecurity framework. We first advise to conduct a risk and vulnerability assessment of your critical systems. This exercise aims to partner with key stakeholders to identify vulnerabilities of those systems and determine the overall risk to your operations. The intended outcome is to give leadership visibility to existing threats and determine where to prioritize efforts. This leads us to our next area of focus, establishing IT's responsibility and the role of the organization. We urge that this be followed by the risk assessment as it gives insight into gaps with their existing structure. IT must have an internal subject matter expert to support the organization's infrastructure and security needs, as well as work closely with appropriate stakeholders to review vendor contracts and service level agreements to ensure compliance. Next, we recommend that POP develop a cybersecurity awareness program to foster a security-minded culture across the organization. The IT-driven program aims to raise awareness to current cybersecurity threats through general and role-specific training for all stakeholders, including simulated phishing and other attacks to reinforce best practices. We also advise to implement endpoint monitoring and detection tools, including a network management server, flow monitoring, and security information and event management solutions. These tools are highly recommended as it continuously monitors traffic on your servers and alert team members when they detect a possible attack. The next step would be to develop a business contingency plan to outline the process of identifying, communicating, and remediating a cybersecurity incident and ensure the business continues moving. Given the rise of cyber attacks across the globe, our recommendation is to start developing a baseline incident response and recovery plan focused on DDoS attacks as part of the organization's business contingency efforts. We've broken down the incident response plan into 4 phases highlighted here. In the preparation phase, POP identifies and documents the device and network information of the critical assets that need to be protected, develops security policies and procedures, and establishes the incident management team and their roles. Once a DDoS attack is identified and confirmed, we begin the detection and analysis phase. The process is to notify the incident response team and affected parties to begin preparation and communication. IT will work to identify the root cause and type of the attack, the infrastructure components affected, and its severity. During this time, POP can begin mitigation efforts by contacting their ISP to reroute traffic, as well as contact law enforcement. Once the root cause is identified, we enter the 3rd phase to contain the incident, eradicate the attack, and recover the system as quickly as possible. Containment and eradication techniques vary by DDoS attack, but some recommendations include using black holing techniques to target the original IPs to terminate unwanted connections on servers and routers, as well as routing traffic through a traffic scrubbing service such as a DNS. Once the attack has been contained and systems are operational, we enter the post-incident activity phase. In this phase, POP incident team review the attack, the effectiveness of the plan, and document lessons learned. This is an integral part of the process as it's meant to improve the infrastructure and process as a whole.
Moving on, POP should prepare a recovery plan to ensure that the system gets back to normal operation smoothly after a DDoS attack. First, POP will want to reestablish its border gateway protocol connection. This protocol enables the communication between a user and a server to happen quickly and efficiently by enabling data routing. Next, POP will want to restart firewalls and other appliances. However, to mitigate the risk of a traffic flood when all connections will attempt to reestablish themselves, POP will need to have a plan for orderly restoration. Moving on, many internet service providers will cut off and not offer connectivity to customers who are hit by DDoS. Therefore, POP may need to convince the provider to let the company back on its network by having a mitigation plan to prove that it won't happen again. Lastly, when your company network is back online, your clients might want to reconnect right away. That demand coming all at once could be a problem. To prevent this, POP will need to have a strategy for gradually reconnecting customer sessions. For example, by routing traffic to different data centers based on IP address range. Moving away from a technical part, let's take a look at legal measures that we recommend to POP. First, on a local level, you may want to consider collaborating with law enforcement as soon as the attack happens. In our case, it's the Hong Kong police that has the Cybersecurity and Technology Crime Bureau. Next, obtaining cyber insurance. It covers your company liability for a data breach involving sensitive voter information. On the international level, when we talk about service providers, reviewing and negotiating a service level agreement should come hand in hand in order to prevent service withdrawal that happened between POP and 2 vendors, AWS and uDomain. Knowing that DDoS attacks oftentimes are orchestrated from outside, collaborating with Interpol will help prosecute bad actors located outside the country. As of today, we know that 2 men were arrested. One was convicted of a criminal charge and given an order of 160 hours of service. And here you can see a few more laws that can be applied to a person that committed a DDoS attack. If a person is found guilty, he or she can be sentenced to up to 10 years in prison and fined up to 25,000 Hong Kong dollars. When reviewing public relations management, we would like to emphasize that communication is the key. Before an attack, we recommend maintaining a communication channel that is accessible 24/7. During an attack, keep internal stakeholders updated on steps your company has taken to mitigate the severity of the situation. After an attack, notify your clients and other entities that may have been affected by the attack. In our case, in order to inform media and public about the attack, POP held press conferences and posted press releases. We would also suggest using social media to reach broader audience. And the next step would be to offer backup alternative services in the event of a system outage, which was also done by POP. As we know, it was decided to switch to paper ballot voting, and also an extended voting period was offered.
Having reviewed the infrastructure of the electronic voting system, some recommendations regarding the development of PopVote are system enhancement. Using an agile software development methodology can quickly roll out updates to resolve any potential bugs or vulnerabilities on the system. Recovery. Thanks to disaster recovery solution, you have the warranty of restore systems, services, and applications in short times and get significantly lower RTO and RPO. Performance. Code efficiency plays a significant role in applications in a high execution speed environment where performance and scalability are paramount. Security. Multi-factor authentication helps safeguard access to data and apps while maintaining simplicity for users. It provides additional security by requiring a second form of verification. In addition to the areas we have covered, we have identified a few other lower priority areas for improvement to better protect your organization. We also recommend the implementation of various user access and authorization controls and policies, such as enforce MFA on all critical and sensitive systems if available, apply a principle of least functionality to systems, only enabling the parts of the system used by the organization. For users, apply principles of least privilege when granting access to systems, giving only necessary access to staff and other users, performing a recertification of access rights on an annual basis. This practice allows IT to confirm if staff have and still need access and the level of access needed for specific systems. Lastly, we recommend some infrastructure-related improvements such as data retention and replication, business continuity, load balancers with rate limit implementation, endpoint detection and monitoring. Thank you so much for listening to our presentation, and I hope you consider our recommendations.